Friends, the rumor from the past few days has been confirmed. And tomorrow we will indeed have a PlayStation event. And it's not going to be a showcase, as some speculated, but rather a state of play. That is a shorter event. In today's video, we're going to analyze a bit what we're going to see at tomorrow's event. And we're going to talk about some games that I think will definitely be there, along with some titles that I'm sure won't show up. Tomorrow, we're going to do a bit of guessing and also some predicting. But besides all this, I'm also going to tell you what this week's schedule looks like. Because, as you well know, the first days of June are key in the world of gaming. And we have all kinds of events, from Xbox, PC, the Summer Game Fest, indie games, and more. Well, state of play predictions and the schedule for this week, that's what today's video is about. And we start right off with the state of play, which is just around the corner, just a few hours away. Tomorrow we have the Sony event. According to the people at PlayStation themselves, it's going to be an event of about 40 minutes or so, which is what we're used to, with state of play events featuring 12 or 15 games, more or less. The program features a selection of great games from creators all around the world, according to Sony PlayStation. Which clearly means that not only will we have some PlayStation 5 exclusives, but we'll also have a lot of games from other publishers. Are you seeing the event schedule for tomorrow on the screen right now? Here they are for you to check. Check your country, your region, and find out what time the event will be broadcast. If you want to see it in more detail, pause the video. Obviously, I'm going to rebroadcast the event on this channel, and the rebroadcast will start a little before the times you saw. Because the times I shared with you are the official ones when Sony starts broadcasting. We're going to start a little earlier here to chat a bit about what's coming up. And just have a good time together like we always do. I think Sony PlayStation at tomorrow's event is going to show some exclusives, although they won't be the majority of the games. Because, well, we know that nowadays there's quite a significant drought of exclusives at Sony. However, there are some things to show and some things to update. Single player exclusives. I think tomorrow we're going to see two games specifically. The first one you're seeing right now on the screen, Death Stranding on the Beach. This video game comes out in 20 days, so obviously it's going to be at the event because it's a PlayStation 5 exclusive, at least at launch. Later on June 8th, Kojima will hold another special event for Death Stranding on the Beach, where we'll see a lot more gameplay. So I think at this PlayStation event, they won't go too deep into Death Stranding. They'll mention it, they'll promote it, and I don't know, maybe they'll show some additions, some pre-order bonuses, I don't know, the usual stuff. The other single-player PlayStation exclusive that I'm sure will be at tomorrow's presentation is Ghost of Jotai. Ghost of Tsushima and another video game are both scheduled for release, with the latter set for October 2nd. Look, there's still quite a while before this game comes out, and it's likely that this title will be among the announcements at PlayStation's September event. Because, you know, they hold events every May and June and every September. And in September, they'll probably focus on promoting this game. But this time, I think it will also be present kind of to start building up the hype with this release. Is this the most important launch of the year from PlayStation Studios? Even though Death Stranding 2 is a PlayStation exclusive, the intellectual property now belongs to Kojima, not PlayStation. Kojima Productions is not a PlayStation studio. That is the only true exclusive created in-house that Sony has this year. The only major one is Ghost of the Day. I guess they're going to give it a good spotlight. And finally, from Sony, whether you like it or not, we're surely going to have a good presentation of Marathon, because Marathon is scheduled for September 23rd. It also falls in September, the month when Sony holds events. Sony will surely do another special Marathon presentation later on. But at this event, we're definitely going to have to sit through 3 or 4 minutes of Marathon. Without a doubt. Well, unless it gets delayed. You know, there's quite a bit of controversy surrounding Marathon. Despite the plagiarism issues, I believe the game will still be featured at tomorrow's event without delay. In fact, I'd even go so far as to say they're going to announce the date of the game's first open beta. Maybe they'll end up delaying the game later, but I think tomorrow it'll be there and they'll announce the beta. Then we have this new studio from the former Bungie developers who split off internally at PlayStation and are now making a multiplayer online battle arena or something like that. The studio LGTBFCGLS. I don't know how much. They gave the studio the worst name they could possibly give it. Well, these people have a multiplayer online battle arena about wrestling Super Smash Bros. Something like that. They've had it developed for quite a while now, and it's likely that the announcement will drop tomorrow. Maybe a trailer or something like that. It's likely that this is Sony's surprise for tomorrow. Yeah, I know. Another multiplayer game. But remember that Sony executives have a distorted view of reality. And they come to believe that these are super important releases or that we're really interested in them. Remember the place they gave to Concord? Remember the place they gave to Foam Stars in a state of play? Do you remember Foam Stars? Did Sony bet on that? Well, Destruction All Stars. And the list goes on, the list goes on. I can't believe it, I can't believe it. For me, tomorrow they're going to give this a little spot. I may be right or wrong. Honestly, regarding Wolverine, Spider-Man, Marvel or Insomniac games, with one hand on my heart, I don't think we'll see anything at all. In fact, I think that the time we saw the Wolverine trailer a few years ago, Insomniac was pressured too much to show that trailer. And they weren't comfortable with that situation. From then on, we didn't see anything else about Wolverine, except for the leak and everything that followed. Insomniac is a video game studio that doesn't show games unless they're ready or about to be released. Well, that's the thing. I don't believe we'll have any content related to Spider-Man or Wolverine. Moreover, if something was in the works, it would have leaked or been teased at Comic-Con, which didn't happen. Regarding third-party games, we have a lot of Chinese games, as we've been seeing in almost every PlayStation event. And I think we can start with Lost Soul Aside, a title that has a release date for August 29th. Look, this title is about to be released. In fact, it was going to come out on May 30th, but it was delayed to August 29th. It's about to be released, and this event is the perfect time to promote it in a video. 4 or 5 days ago, I said Chinese games, and I referred to Stellar Blade as a Chinese game. And a lot of people came to tell me that it's not a Chinese game, it's Korean. With all due respect to the Asian community, I honestly don't care at all. I call anything from Europe over there a Chinese game, except for Japan. And it's not out of disrespect, it's just that it's understood, right? Maybe I should say Asian game out of respect for Asians? But how does a kilo of vegetables matter to me? Speaking of Chinese games, we also have Tides of Annihilation. I think you remember this video game, because it was one of the most impressive things we saw at the previous PlayStation State of Play. The presentation they gave us of this game was so impressive. We discussed this title for days. Sony seems to be aware of it, as it was the most impressive game they showcased. Let's see. It's a Chinese studio based on the Arthurian myth, and supposedly it's set entirely in the United Kingdom. Yeah, it has nothing to do with any PlayStation studio, not even close, but obviously Sony has some kind of publishing agreement or something like that. They presented it at their previous State of Play and may continue in this direction at the upcoming one, as it has worked well for them. This title generated buzz and publicity for the PlayStation event. Continuing with the lineup of Chinese games, we have Phantom Blade Zero, another game that should be completely finished, because we've already seen a lot of previews. In fact, last year at Gamescom, exactly a year ago, I played a preliminary version of the game that was pretty much finished. And in theory, the release date for this title is set for this year. Sony also has a publishing agreement with this title, so this game would probably be present. It's a somewhat technical hack and slash, with some elements from Southlight, action, third-person adventure, and a Chinese style. By the way, of this style of game, there are a ton of PlayStation games, or rather games distributed by PlayStation still in the pipeline. There are too many similar ones, so reviewing them all would take forever. You can expect a lot of games at tomorrow's PlayStation event. Chinese, Korean, Taiwanese, Chinese, all of that. This title is also almost ready. In fact, it's so close to being ready that it has a demo on Steam, in case you're interested in trying it out. This is Hell Is Us, and it also has a certain distribution agreement with PlayStation. It's probably one of the titles we're going to see at tomorrow's State of Play. And in fact, the title is set for September 4th, which is coming up soon and will probably be released before the next PlayStation event. so it's totally logical for this title to be presented. Maybe it'll be presented with a demo on PlayStation. Maybe it'll come with some new feature with pre-orders, I don't know. From the Japanese ones, from the big Japanese companies. Konami will definitely be there because they're going to promote Metal Gear Solid Delta Remake Remaster. I'm unsure of the amount since the title releases on August 28th, which is approaching quickly and already has a set date. So most likely some trailer will be shown or something like that. Silent Hill F could also be a possibility. This title is expected to release this year, according to Konami's announcement. However, it's uncertain if they'll adhere to that schedule. And because of the recent closeness between Konami and PlayStation, could we assume that this title will be there? I might be wrong, but there's a good chance I'm not. Another Japanese company that I think will definitely be at the state of play is Capcom. The question is, what the heck is Capcom going to show up with? Because there are a lot of Capcom games nowadays, games that could be released or are currently in development. There are DLCs for Street Fighter, there's scheduled content for Monster Hunter Wilds, maybe Onimusha, or even Resident Evil 9. There are a lot of insiders and leakers out there who love to say that Resident Evil 9 will be at the state of play. Let me tell you that for every state of play or every showcase or every PlayStation event, is there always an insider saying that Resident Evil will be there? Always. And it's always the same. 1 out of every 10 times, they're right. What we can be sure of with the state of play is that there's always something from Capcom, because that's a fact. Capcom always puts an announcement in a state of play. It could be anything, even a downloadable content for Monster Hunter Wilds. It's a game that's going to get a lot of content. It could be something for Street Fighter 6. Maybe we'll get lucky and, I don't know, Resident Evil 9 drops. And I don't think so anymore, really. I don't. And I think it's going to be announced for the first time at the end of year Game Awards. But hopefully we get lucky. Why not? Well, not everything is about state of play. Not everything begins and ends with PlayStation. Actually, everything begins with PlayStation. Because after the state of play, new events just keep coming the very next day after the state of play. On Thursday the 5th, we'll have the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2. While it's true that some content creators, some clients, some buyers, players, or however you want to call them, were receiving the console in advance. Because sometimes that happens. The official release day is the 5th, and all the reviews and all the analyses and everything else will be released on the 5th. It's a very important day. In fact, they say there could even be some kind of Nintendo event like that. A surprise? I don't think so, but it could happen. The next day, June 6th, Friday, we have a triple event. On one hand, we have the Geoff Keighley event, which will last about 2 hours or so. And it's going to have so many collaborators that if I start mentioning them now, we'll never finish. After the Summer Game Fest, we have the Day of the Devs, a small event that's always attached to the Summer Game Fest, which honestly isn't very relevant. In fact, I usually don't even stream it because it ends up being more boring than anything else. But there it is. It's an event of the day. At the end of Friday, we also have the Devolver Digital event. A very strange, very unique event that tends to be quite fun. And we usually summarize it on this channel since Devolver is also a great publisher. Are we going to get any good games out of it? The next day, June 7th, we have the Latin American Games Showcase, an event that promises to feature more than 50 indie games from studios. People from Argentina, Mexico, Chile, Brazil, Colombia, Peru, and throughout Latin America. It's going to be important. I'll probably cover it, not because of the quality of the games we'll see, but because of what this event represents. I don't mean to underestimate the Latin American video game industry, but it's not at the level of Europe, the United States, or Japan. We're not going to see the games we'll see at the Summer Game Fest on Saturday at the Latin American Game Showcase. Yes, it's crucial to support them, and I'm sure we'll discover some interesting games. So, I'm definitely going to cover it, everything I'm telling you about. I'm definitely going to cover whether it's live or with a summary. Sunday, June 8th is the last day of this round of events, and we have 2 events. The first is the Xbox Digital event, the Xbox Game Showcase. An event you already know, focused on titles published by Xbox, titles that will be released on Xbox, or Game Pass titles. You already know it's the same as always. I'm really looking forward to it because they're always quality. Honestly, these recent events have been great, and the next one starts right as this one ends. we have the Other Wars 2 Direct, one of those special live streams that Microsoft does for one of its games, specifically for the Other Wars 2. And finally, on Sunday night, we have the PC Gaming Show, which is usually by far the worst event out of all the events we have year after year. I can't understand the purpose or the organizers of this event. It's unclear who the target audience is or who's behind it. We usually see about 50 or 60 video games at this event. Are 3 of them interesting? It's super boring, and I usually just put out a summary on Monday. That's likely my plan for this year as well. It's actually the final event in the entire series. So, do they present a lot of video games that you've already seen at the previous events? And they also present PC exclusives, which I don't know about anymore. It's like PC gaming is declining when it comes to exclusives. It seems like the most interesting games you can play on PC nowadays are either multi-platform or PlayStation ports. And I turned all the PC people against me. They say they're going to showcase 70 video games at the PC Gaming Show, out of which 57 are going to be garbage. 3 are going to be so-so, and for 10 you'll say, well, is it enough for me to make a video? It happens to me every year, so I think unless everything changes, it's going to be pretty much the same as always. Friends, this is the agenda we have. Here are my state of play predictions. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you did. Join Big Data for summaries, live streams, and all the latest information. As compact and understandable as possible, the epic event took place a few hours ago since I started this video, and show new gameplay of The Witcher 4. It looks spectacular, but I didn't cover it. I'll make a special video to discuss it at some point. It's really spectacular. What we saw is crazy, but that's for later. That's all for now. Catch you on tomorrow's live stream. Bye.